This is Tailgate Talk, brought to you by Buck Rub Outfitters in Pewaukee off of Silverdale Road. They are the Midwest leading archery, bow hunting, crossbow authority with everything in stock. In fact, if you happen to be looking for a brand new bow or crossbow, they will price match anything they have in stock. You find a cheaper price online, they'll take care of you. Plus, their staff is fantastic. They've got all the accessories you need. And they're going to hook you up from Matthews to Bowtech, you name it. Buck Rub Archery. They also make some cool products of their own as well. I love their sights. I absolutely love their Ravenclaw arrow rest that I use. So if you want to check them out, again, Buck Rub Outfitters, Silverdale Road in Pewaukee. Just go to buckrubarchery.com. As we get the show going this week, we'll talk a little bit about some bow hunting. Got some stuff, CWD updates from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. And don't forget, next week, I'm going to make sure we don't forget about this. The guys at Vortex Optics are going to join us on the show. We're going to be talking all optics, from basic, beginner to advanced, new products. Where is the world of optics going? If you've got a question you want answered from the guys at Vortex, it doesn't have to be about a Vortex product. It could be any optics product, whether it's Bushnell or whatever it is. Why don't you shoot us a message, hit us on our socials, @on the tailgate, or you can always hit our email, Shaun.Ritter@iheartmedia.com. Speaking of socials, if you're not following us, why don't you go ahead there, Instagram, do it right now, @on the tailgate, also Twitter. If you want to find me, it is @TheRealRitter, REEL, as in fishing reel, RIDDER. I'm at Eric Tasker, ET5504, and Wags. You can follow him as well. Wags, what's new?
Well, I tell you what, we just came over from the other studio, and we were talking Brewer baseball, so obviously we're excited about that. But in the meantime, I got a couple text messages and some photos from the Flaters Resort up in the Holcomb area, and they landed about 3 muskies. Weather's changing, low water levels, but the weeds are floating. But they're catching big muskies in that 2 to 5 o'clock window, and they're catching them on big bucktails. So, yeah, it's pretty nice. It's pretty neat to see pictures, and there's blue skies up north. So maybe the temperature may be a little cool, but it definitely looks nice. I'd love to be on the boat.
That's kind of one of the things I want to talk about a little later on the show. We're going to get to some on muskie fishing, and that me being like a complete beginner. I'm putting myself in I've caught muskies before, but I'm going to put myself in the beginner boat. Get what I did there? And just kind of want to talk about things to look for, some things to think about, and go back to some of your knowledge. You've spent much more time fishing these fish. We'll get to that coming up in the show. But I want to jump into some of the kind of the newsy stuff and cover. And this is something actually Tasker brought up back last week. We didn't have time to get to. The photos that are floating all over the internet of this 50-pointer. You remember bringing this up? And the situation in Kansas? Have you seen
I didn't
these?
see that.
So there's reportedly
Is it a little kid? Is it the kid? It jumped the high fence.
Yep, guy in Kansas.
So it jumps the high
shot
fence.
this deer, and then turns out as he got up to it, found there's a hole punched in the ear, and knew it's got to be a farm deer. Now, he didn't shoot it in a high fence farm.
Right.
He shot it outside of it. This is one that they claim may have escaped while they were trying to move the deer around. But they said we can't count it as the record world's biggest deer. Do you agree with that?
I guess that makes enough sense to me that they would not, just because. Now, if there was not a punch in the ear, there's enough variables in play that it could just be some freak that happened to get loose.
Genetic freak.
Yeah. But just having the hole punched in the ear, it's like, all right, do you really want to count that when it's something that's genetically grown and breeded for how many generations now to turn into something like that? I mean, that's not what happens out in the wide open woods,
Yeah, I'm not I don't know, free range. He shot him free range. The kid, I get, maybe not. You know what? Maybe I guess that's just luck of the draw. I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know how to answer that, whether it counts or not. But I did see that it was a high fence, escapee.
They're worried about being kind of one of those tarnished records if they were to count it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the way it looked, it was
a freak.
It was obnoxiously, yeah. So I'm gonna go with the no. I'm more of a traditional. I told you that. I'm more of a typical. When I go non-typical, when I like scoring my deer non-typical, I like drop tines, maybe some little kickers, maybe a little crab claw, maybe something a little bit different. But when you get to those type of deer, I'm not looking to put a 300-inch cauliflower on my roof or on my wall.
All right, so are you a betting man?
I bet.
All right, here's a wager for you. Mountain goat or grizzly bear? Who wins the fight?
Say that again.
Mountain goat or grizzly bear?
Gosh, you throw these trick questions. I'm going to go grizzly bear, but I know it's going to be the goat. Or it's going to be...
Who are you taking?
Well, you would think automatically the bear would win.
So is that what you're going to
That's
place
what,
your bet on the grizzly
that's
bear?
what I'll say.
It happened. Parks officials in Canada found the carcass of a female grizzly bear back on September 4th near a trail of British Columbia's Yoho National Park. Turns out this is a bear that died of natural causes, which is due to an unsuccessful predation attempt of a mountain goat. The wildlife ecologist, the park agency, was talking about this and said how the goat apparently killed the bear was based on the wounds found in the bear's carcass. They found that there was under the armpit and in the side of the neck 2 jab wounds. When grizzlies attack, they tend to focus on the head and back area, the shoulder, kind of that of a prey. So if you think of where a mountain goat's, where Billy's got his horns at, that bear, I'm thinking, probably went thinking it was going to get a hold of this mountain goat, and the goat just gored it, essentially, and killed it. The other thing to consider is that in this part of the Canadian Rockies, those mountain goats can weigh close to 300 pounds. And the bear, they say it was about 155 pounds and appeared to be in reasonable to poor body condition for this time of year. So maybe that working against it, but I would have picked the grizzly bear too. You'd think that, but man, that Billy, that's a tough Billy. That's a Billy that you don't want to run into if it's taking down grizzly bears.
He's not the one where we put a quarter in, we get our little hand feed and let him eat out of our hand at the zoo.
No, totally.
300-pound goat like that. No, you tackle bears.
The thing that I would have thought is that it would have died because the goat would have rammed it and it would have head to head and knocked it out or killed it from a brain damage thing. I would not have expected it to be that.
And this just came out this past week. In fact, Wednesday, the DNR had held a big conference with CWD. We've talked about it on this show. There's a whole episode focused on chronic wasting disease. If you want to check that out, it's on the iHeartRadio app. Just go down a couple episodes. I forget what it's titled. It's titled something. It was a while ago. But anyway, we focused a lot on CWD. I'm trying to work on getting some chronic wasting experts on the show here to talk about things. I know our man Doug Duran in the western part of the state is big into that. But they're encouraging all hunters to get your deer tested. Basically saying that it's on us as outdoors people and as hunters. We obviously take stock and care about the whitetail population. And this being I'll use the word pandemic. I mean, it kind of is for whitetails in the state of Wisconsin of how we're the worst. We're the epicenter of bad CWD spread. And they say the only way we can control it is to do our part and submit the samples. I know the DNR set up all these sites across the state. People have basically bought these rental kiosks that are set up that you can find where you can submit the sample. But they had a big meeting on it and really focusing this year on Brown, Calumet, Door, Green Lake, Fond du Lac, Kewaunee, Manitowoc, Marinette, Oconto, Outagamie, Wapaka, Waushara, and Winnebago County. So everybody right there, smack dab in the middle and kind of the northern counties of, where our affiliate is in Milwaukee up there. But, if you're not familiar with chronic wasting disease, kind of like mad cow disease. It affects the brain of animals, kind of makes them act weird. They grow thin and eventually end up dying from things. So this is a real big problem.
Where is the sample taken? How does
head samples? The head. Mainly, they're looking for to basically donate the head of your deer to test it for CWD.
So if this is what you want to do, and I got two opinions on it, and I did see it when you sent the article over. I did look at it last night or yesterday, and you know what? I really miss registering my deer at a DNR site, at the gas station, at the restaurants, at the little little cafes and the diners and stuff. If you really want to do that, if you want to check them, don't put that on our shoulders. Go back, revert back, at least in those counties, go back to say there's no online registering. You must register your deer now at a location, centrally located, and we will take the sample. I think when you're deer hunting as a group and you're running around and stuff, unfortunately, CWD is very serious, but it's not one of the top things on your mind, let alone taking a head. If you want to set it up like that, I think if you really are concerned with it, in those counties, they should have registration sites like we did in the past and have them taken right away. Maybe mandatory. Mandatory. If you're taking an eye drip through their eye, or if you're going through their ear, or if you're going up the nasal cavity, whatever you're doing, go do it. But don't try to throw that back on the hunter because the hunter wants good quality, and it's our obligation to keep the deer population healthy and stuff like that. It is, but we work together. Don't do that. I think that would be my solution for this, if it's a possibility.
I 100% agree with you, Wags. I can't figure out why they went away from I guess maybe I can figure it out. Now the DNR doesn't have to staff people. They didn't have the people to staff to do this, or they were getting, fight back from the local gas stations if one of their employees had to handle the register.
Okay,
So I can see where maybe they stopped doing it. It's too easy to have the online. I mean, being a waterfowler for as many years as I was, it was super easy. Geese, you just pop on your phone right there in the field and you're like, doot, 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 type in your numbers, make sure your license is slitted and you're all set, good to go. You never had to go anywhere. Turkeys was the first. They went to the online registration. Again, it was nice and easy. Went on phone, called them, doot, 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 you're all set to go. So building that system of convenience, I get it is nice, but yeah, when it comes to things like this, collecting samples, I agree with you. It'd be so much easier if they just had a place that we just went to register them and you got it all done at once. It was registration / CDW sample. Like, make it mandatory.
Yeah, especially in these areas. It is the centrally located part of the state. If that is our target area, that is where we should put some efforts to. But keep it open. If you still harvest a deer, again, I would look at it when I maybe a malnutrition, looks like it's dry mouth, maybe it's got hit, maybe whatever you think. If that would be the only reason to spur me, and I'm just speaking the truth right now. My main goal isn't, and maybe I should, refocus, but it isn't to harvest an animal. And the first thing I'm thinking about is somehow get a head sample or a brain sample or go into a kiosk and sample. That isn't.
No, your first thought is I want those tenderloins in the grill.
Exactly right. I want those tenderloins and hey, give me those back straps.
Yeah.
You get the shot. You get the side I shot. I get the other side.
Well, let's be clear too. No proof has been found of passing of chronic wasting disease from the cervids to humans. So at least there's that aspect of things. But
right.
Again, this is a health thing about all the deer population, everyone within the cervid family. So just something to think about. If you're looking for a place, go to DNR's website. They've got all the info on there for you to submit your samples for chronic wasting disease. But we're going to continue more of the conversation. We're going to get into a bit of bow hunting. Tasker, you're the only person that was out bow hunting last week, and want to find out what you saw, what you're seeing, what's going on. It's all coming up next as we continue Tailgate Talk. Hey, it's Ritter, and if you follow my socials or listen to our show a lot, I'm sure you've heard me talk about how relaxing and fun archery is. In fact, my wife has joined me and got a bow of her own at the same place I did, Buck Rub Archery. They are your locally owned and operated one-stop shop for all things archery. With the area's largest inventory, they won't be undersold on any bow or crossbow. It's open to the public and the ideal place to find and test a bow before you buy. Plus, they also rent equipment, offer archery lessons, and have space for hosting birthday parties, scouts, or other events. And if you got an old bow that needs to be fixed, they can take care of you as well. Seriously, check them out off I-94 on Silverdale Road or buckrubarchery.com. All right, we're back. This is Tailgate Talk. Talked a lot about CWD in the first part of the show. We're going to talk about some musky fishing as we wrap up the show here this week. All right, so Tasker, you were out bow hunting last week. In fact, the only one of us that was out bow hunting for the Wisconsin Opener. How did things go? What'd you see? What are you feeling? Give us an update on that.
Well, last week we didn't really talk about this much because we kind of ran out of time with everything else. And what I wanted to say was that I was on a very high for the last 2 months coming into the season.
You were. And
last week, I kind of felt this sense of calm because I knew that it was going to be a very, very hot weekend. It was 86 or 87 degrees for a projected high on Sunday. It was 76 or 78 degrees on Saturday. And I knew that conditions weren't really going to be ideal. So I kind of just rethought about everything. And I'm like, the only goal for this weekend is check the cameras, figure out what we have out there, and just see what happens. We've got time to sit. So it was actually better than I had expected. Saw a couple deer on Saturday. Had a doe at about 14 yards, which then I found out was probably a yearling. My dad's not that far away from me. So he saw mama deer, and baby deer must have split off from her and was just sitting there right at 14 yards. So that was great. I mean, nice close encounter. And then Sunday when it was really hot, no deer, which I was not surprised by. But that makes for a really long sit. We have long hours now, and made for a long day. So we exchanged a ton of text messages that day, which was great. Helped pass the time.
I was getting a lot of photos as well from your trail cams. So how many deer did you end up finding that you have kind of in your area right now?
Well, I want to say that we have probably a dozen bucks. So we have two really, really nice deer, one of which we shared on the tailgate for Instagram. Which that's one that we'll probably touch on here in a second, which I have a little history with. We saw one more that was even bigger than that one. And then there's 2 additional 8-pointers, I think 2 6-pointers, and then like a couple like forks and a nub buck, which I happened to see on Monday and had about a 10-minute stare down with. And that was right before we were getting ready to get out of the woods. So there was a big storm that was rolling in on Monday, and we decided that we were going to sit until about 1 o'clock. Storm should have been coming in about 1:30, 1:45, so that gave us enough time to just kind of pack up. Well, as it always goes, about 12:40, 12:45, I'm thinking I might not be able to get out of here because I had 2 does that were kind of off in the distance at about 60 yards, and then this nub buck that I saw that kind of walked out. I watched it walk out, and I had to keep refocusing my binoculars because I'm like, you know what? It's actually an okay-sized deer. I think I would take this shot if it's a doe. But I had to keep refocusing because I thought I could see something on the head. And then I finally, when it was out in the open clearing, I realized that it was a nub buck and it was going to be close enough that I couldn't risk losing a buck tag for that. So, you know, it was honestly, I mean, it far exceeded everything that I had expected it to be this weekend, just knowing that it wasn't going to be ideal conditions. Pressure was low. Wind was kind of moderate, but temps were just so high that it wasn't anything that we were expecting to have a great weekend of deer traffic. So it was good overall.
Kept me out of the woods and on the water myself over the weekend. So we've named King, our resident around the broadcast facility here. Have you started, you know, because that's the big thing in the Midwest. We have to name our deer. Have you named any of these that you've picked up on your cam to keep track?
The one that you posted the video of that's right in front of my stand. So I'm kind of kicking myself now. I guess it's a lesson learned. So last year I named him Ocho because it was a big 8.
Okay, he's the one in velvet that's on our Instagram @on the tailgate if you want to follow us there.
This year grew a little more and it turned into a 9-pointer. So I guess we're just sticking with Ocho just because that's the name from last year. But I want to say that I did see that deer one time during bow season last year, but it was at like 50-ish yards, and I just wasn't comfortable with that shot last year. This year, I still doubt that I would take that shot, but you know, if we can get into like the 40-yard range, I think I'd feel really comfortable with that. I've shot enough past that distance. But that's the only one that we actually have a name for, because that's the big one that we've got history with. You know, my dad called one of them something, but I can't remember what he named the really big one. But the other one that we had a video of at night has this really strange lighting feature in the background of the video, and I feel like it's got to be something like E.T. or... which is just funny that that's my initials, but like something like that. So I don't know. It's just something that we can think about here for the next couple weeks and hope that we can kind of pinpoint some of those and put some fun names on them.
Yeah, it was kind of cool to see some of the trail cams of him, and just looking at some of the dates, I was like, oh my gosh, Tasker's got to be so excited as you were sending the photos over to us. And a lot of raccoons and one surprise also.
A nice size black bear was directly where that video that you had posted was in the same exact spot. So this is only the second year that we're running cameras, but this is the first year that we've ever had a bear on the camera. We know that there's bear around there. We've seen them driving home from like at night. But that was like, oh my God. And so I actually sent that picture to my wife Sherry, and I said, I guess I'm going to have to start applying for my bear points.
There you go.
And she said, I guess you're going to need to find a different place to hunt. So that was kind of funny, but yeah, it was cool just to see that. You know, it's always interesting what's out there. And
good stuff. Well,
yeah.
You weren't the only one with a little bit of deer stuff going on this weekend. It's on our Instagram, @on the tailgate, a picture of the latest erection on the Wagner Ranch. How was it putting up your meat pole, your buck pole?
Well, as you know, I shook a couple hands, kissed a few babies, let them do the work, and I came into studio last week. Sometimes, you know, massive projects like that, I go with the professionals.
It looks good. It looks great. It looks fantastic. Did you get the pulley system all set up on that?
Pulley system, we have it. 3 of them. I got a buddy bringing over. I'm going to have 3 pulleys, so it's 10 feet wide. I'm thinking I can get 3 deer in there. We're going to set it up. And, so I have power actually on that back side underneath the pine trees. So what I always do is we have, this is a little off topic, but we have Wagner Fest. And I have buddies bring in campers. So it goes from Thursday to Sunday. And then they bring in their campers, and there's power. There's no water, but there's power out there, so they can put their anything they want, and then they can leave it there, and they come in and out. Some guys got to work on Friday; they'll come back in and stuff like that. So I actually have power right underneath those pine trees, and I can run about a 50-foot extension cord there. So we put loops on the side, and I put up. I rigged it so that we can have those spotlights, those LED lights. Mm-hmm. So I don't have lights permanently, but I'll just put them out there and stuff. And that part I can handle. As far as everything else, I'm gonna let Dave do that. He can take care of that, just like I let the guys from Redneck put my blinds up. As soon as I saw the truck was there, I showed them where it was. I showed them where the refrigerator was. They helped themselves to beer, water, soda. I'm out of here.
That's usually the smartest way to get anything done. All right, well, we're going to get into some fall muskie fishing, as that's pretty much the next big thing a lot of people are thinking about. Bow season started. You got gun hunting coming up. You got the muskies. Are they going to be shallow? What is going on? Newbie, basically, muskie fisherman, we'll say, muskie angler this year. I am Shaun Ritter, along with Paul Wagner, a.k.a. Wags, the former major leaguer, and Eric Tasker. I set myself a goal for this past summer, and I was very vocal and said it right here on this show, that I wanted to put a muskie in my kayak this summer. Now, I've caught muskies before, fishing in Canada mostly, and occasionally the accidental through the ice. But I've never spent a lot of my time, focused specifically going after muskie, just like now I've set that goal for myself. Now, throughout the summer, I didn't really bother with it because I know fall can be better, and obviously being in a kayak, we've talked about that, the situation with the pleasure, recreational boaters, it gets tough and it gets rough, and there's a lot of traffic, and if I want to stay close to home, somewhere like Okachi Lake is probably the best and holds the most muskies down in this area, and again, same thing, there's just a lot of pleasure boater traffic, and I'm trying to avoid it. I figure fall, a lot of people hold off and don't, which actually I mentioned just before that last weekend I didn't bother going to the woods to bow hunt the opener. I instead was out fishing, and I was shocked, even on Sunday, with it being as warm as it was, that there wasn't that many boats. In fact, I was on the water by 6:15, and I got off the water at about 11:30. I mean, at 11:30, there was a long line trying to put in, and they were coming onto the lake that I was on. But that there wasn't anyone out there earlier. I pretty much had the entire north end of this lake all to myself the entire day. I mean, there was one boat, one duck boat that went by, and maybe 4 other boats. But it was never like the big skiers flying around like I've had, earlier this summer on this same lake. I was shocked at it that, the people have just pulled the plug, as you'd say in boating, just pulled the plug and been done with it for the year. But I'm kind of curious. You've fished a lot of muskies and spent a lot of time doing it. What's something you always think of, where's a good starting point for fall muskies if you're looking for them? And I'm not talking just for me. I'm talking for anyone thinking about fishing muskies. I mean, as far as baits or, is there a certain water temperature that, I've heard that they typically like to move up into shallowers once the nights start getting cooler?
For me, you mentioned lakes. You mentioned Pewaukee, Okachi, Oconomowoc Lake, Lake LaBelle, all those things. I'm a river. Most of my muskie fishing is done on the river. I'm on the Chippewa and the Flambeau flowages, where those two flowages meet into Lake Holcomb. So it's a totally different type of muskie fishing than it is on lakes. I don't use planer boards. I don't throw suckers out there. I don't go around a certain weed bed. I can't fish muskies on a lake. I can't do it. But floating down the river is so nice. I look for overhangs. As the sun goes up, we were just talking to Joe earlier, and Joe said that window of hits where the shallow waters are and those bait feeds are coming in, the 2 to 5 range. So I know that Joe and we like to fish underneath the overhanging cedars, a little swirl or where those little fetches are, or, the current stops behind those big rocks on the river. I like to cast by that, and I'll come right across it. But right now, he said that, with the weather starting to drop right now and the low water levels and stuff, and with the weeds on there, they've been using big bucktails. So big bucktails have been doing well. They boated 42, a 38, and a 35 this week, had a bunch of follow-ups. And so that's kind of what we do. I like it because Joe knows where to go. And it's easier for me. Sometimes I get those rat nests, when I'm using that bait caster, those heavy weights. I try to gauge my thumb pressure, but I go from big baits to little baits. I got to stay a constant bait, or else I turn my back to Joe and I just go I just keep putting him on line.
You got to make that little adjustment on the reel there. You got to adjust the reel break. You're talking about, that's Joe Flater, Flater's Resort, up in the, what'd you say, with the Holcomb Flambeau area? Yep,
right on County D. Yep, Flater's Resort, great place. He's got cabins up there, and he's got a great facility. If you ever get a chance to go up there and you don't want to go all the way up to Hayward, you can get an easy float down the Flambeau or the Chippewa, whatever way you want to go. But it's just fun. I like seeing different things when I go down the river. You'll see deer crossing at shallows. You'll see eagles coming across. You'll see eagles coming right in front of you, picking up northerns. I mean, you're looking like 30-inch northerns just pulled out of the water with these talons and stuff like that. You'll see bear walking along the shoreline. I mean, you just see so much. And I'm one of those guys. If you spin me in a boat nonstop for 5 hours, hell, I can't handle that.
See, and that's kind of my thought is I want to spend time fishing. The river sounds fun, but to me, river gets difficult in the kayak. Because, it's easy to float one way, the other way back sucks, unless you got someone to come pick you up on the other end. But to be able to float around, and whether it's working weed beds, I've given the thought to suckers and trying that. And I know typically that's a very hard pull
right.
if you're going to try and sucker fish, but I'm up for the challenge. Like, that's one of the things I'm the moron that's like, I set a challenge. I'm like, okay, by the end of this year, I want a muskie in my kayak. And I know that was like a stupid thing probably to challenge myself to, but I like to challenge myself, and I like to try unattainable things. And my thought was like, okay, last-ditch effort. I'm wondering, like, is that like in early November I try and get out there and, like, sit up and just float around with a sucker for a couple of hours and see what happens? Like, am I crazy, I guess?
Yes, don't do that. We just went over it last week, didn't we? We said that muskie season in the northern and the southern zone both ends December 31st, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So you have time. No, don't do that. Don't do that. You're right, though. I didn't think of the kayak thing. So when we usually go up, we have somebody drop us off at the top. We'll come through the dam. We'll come down that way, and it's only about a 20. It's really wild because it's about a 20, maybe a 25-minute ride upriver, but it's about a 4 or 5 hour float. Mm-hmm. So I just think you'd have more fun. I think, yeah, it might be a struggle. You got to balance it, weight, but you can control your kayak so well. You've used it. You know exactly how it works. I think you'd have a lot more fun, and you'd enjoy muskie fishing better that way. Trying to get rid of these little holes, getting to see where current stops, see where it rises, see where there's a little bit of shade, see where there's a little puddle on a shoreline or something like that. I think you'd really like that, because that's the type of fishing, I think, especially coming from the bass industry or the bass world. You don't want to just sit around and float with a sucker behind you with a planer board, or unless, no.
See, the only part that sounds attractive to that is right here, what's in this steel cup, is to be able to just sit there and just, basically watch a float and just float around and drink my coffee and relax and enjoy the outdoors, versus fishing hard like I'm typically associated. I'm constantly moving and constantly fishing hard, and I'm standing up and sitting down, standing up and sitting down. And that's one of the things in kayak fishing, and something I've mentioned on my YouTube channel when I've talked about some of the kayak fishing stuff that people don't think about when, like, I want to get into that. The fitness level that's required for it, especially if you're, stand-up style and working time. You're up, down, up, down, up, down. It's a lot of core, and even balance is core, but then you're up, down, up, down, up, down constantly. I was sore after last weekend, spending some time out fishing. It's like you do so much. It's like, okay, I can feel it in the core. I can feel it in my legs a little bit from the up, down, up, down.
I got to say, it is nice. We take out just a regular fishing boat, a 14-foot fishing boat, your metal, just the old ones that we used to see at the campgrounds and all that stuff. No motor on there, but there's always someone working the oars, and it's never me.
Yeah, of course. The oarman's all the worker.
So they're the hard workers. I'm just throwing baits over the place, and they're telling me where to go and stuff like that. So yes, if I had to multitask, I'd have to really look into that as well. But for me, being the front end of the boat and someone else maneuvering it and just trying to fish, it's a fun time. And yeah, you're right. Maybe you want to just relax and look at it, but don't limit your options. Maybe you try to find a spot, get a follow up. Maybe just get then all of a sudden find a follow up. And what I've seen too, when we've had follow ups, and I don't know if this is just river compared to lakes, but they'll literally come out of, let's just say they come out of a 10, 12, 15 foot offshore. They'll come out of that hole, follow up, hit it, and you'll see them literally spin, and it almost looks like they go right back to their hole. And it's like, hey, this is where I live. I came out here to chase this piece. Now I'm going right back there. So then you can spin around, and we've come back multiple times and came back and cast in that same hole and grabbed them again.
I've seen pike do that. I mean,
yes.
Acting the same effect. This just actually literally Sunday, I had a pike do that to me. Swiped at it, just missed the hooks, and there I am I was doing a large spinnerbait with a big paddle tail on it. And there I'm sitting with no paddle tail. It just came and swiped so hard, just snap, and then immediately darted right back where he was. I couldn't, get back on him fast enough to try and recast at him. But yeah, I've seen pike do that too. The muskies that I've caught in Canada, it's never been that. I mean, they've followed, but it's been usually a pretty committed. It's not either they're following and looking and they just like slowly dip down, or they're following and they just aggressively smash it and take off.
Yeah.
I've had one of those too.
I love it because I love it the way they spin around. They look at you with the big eyes and they spin around. They're not trying to hide. They'll make surface water. I mean, they're not jumping out like bass, but they'll go right back. And that's why different with, it's different if you're on a lake. Or did you pin it? Where was that hit? Right over in this area. Where was it? But when you're on the river, you can actually, if the current isn't too strong, you can actually spin around, come back, and we'll float down that same ledge, and I'll cast right back in there, and that's when we hit them again. So when you're on a river, you can pinpoint spots where your cast was aimed, what you were looking for, trying to get over that crevice or right underneath that branch. Now you can go back to that spot, so it's a little bit maybe it's a little easier too.
I'm curious, and when you're doing a float like that, do you ever like anchor up along the way, or do you just like it's constantly moving downstream?
Constantly moving.
Okay, so it's never an anchor thing. All right. Nope. So yeah, you almost have to really be able to see ahead to pick your spot, and you've got to be able to make that cast. You don't have necessarily a second or a third shot at some of it. So
what we'll do is we usually have two guys in the boat. I'm always in the lead because I'm probably the worst aimer. So I have a guy right there underneath that cedar, and I go, no. I'll wheel it in quick. I'll miss it again, and finally the back guy will just flip it in there, and boom, he hits it. So we always have two. So we have our spots, and you're right. You can't hit that spot twice yourself, but if you have two people, you can hit that spot, twice, and that's how we usually do it. And unfortunately, I'm usually the guy that misses first. So I'm ball one, and then he strike out.
So you're the leadoff and not the cleanup guy.
Correct.
You're not batting cleanup on the boat.
Yeah, I lead off, and I get turned around, and I don't get on base.
Now, is it majority bucktails you fish with, or you got into some of the swim baits, the crankbaits?
I don't use the bucktails that much. I
know Suix has been one of the big ones that everyone's using lately.
I use those big ones. I've gone with the colors. I've gone with black and orange have always worked big for me. And then there's one that looks sort of like, not the perch. Like I use my Rapalas and stuff. I like to use perch, like the Z-Wrap, the wraps with, if I'm going smallies or something like that, I'll use that. I'll flip that with the Rapala, but then I'll go back to, I tell you what, I've had a lot of success with the one that looks like a little walleye.
Okay.
It looks like a little walleye, and I'm going to take some pictures, and I'll show them to you, and we can do something with them. But these are the ones that I've had success at. I've gone to Dick's. I've done a lot of these musky shops. When you go with these guys at Musky Fish, man, they're always looking for something different. But I've always found that walleye color paint rather than a perch or the silver. And I like black and orange. Black and orange always is my go-to for those things, and I love it. And then I get the big, I use the big bucktail too.
For me, pike has always been chartreuse. They tend to love.
Yeah.
And smallmouth tend to love chartreuse. I don't know what it is. The chartreuse has been my thing for pike and smallmouth.
Yep.
Absolutely love those colors. Usually a white and chartreuse, which is where why is it always your go-to color? Well, because I feel that there's a lot of fish that like white and chartreuse. It can match and look like just about anything.
All right.
All right. See, I've looked at some of the bigger, like softer swim baits, Medusas and things like that, and I'm like, man, I just can't. I feel like it fits the way that I want to fish because I am not which is where again the soaking a bobber thing is not my. I'm not a big jig fisherman. Even in bass fishing, I'm not a big jig guy.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a just like pitch a jig or flip a jig. I like moving baits.
Yeah.
I'm all about moving. I'm about speed, covering water. That's how I like to do things. I don't know if it's ADD that I just can't sit down and I don't have the attention for it.
Right.
But I like to feel my baits, see my baits, know what's happening, and I feel like that's with musky fishing. I want to be moving more, and I want something that I can feel moving. Where if I feel something off, like I'll know, or I'll be obviously be bigger. I'll be able to see it or know.
So what I do, speaking of what you like, I have two musky rods. I have one that a guy, I think it's one's I don't go with the big 8. I got one that's I got a short, stiffer one. I think it's about I'm going to go 7-footer.
I've got a 7.5 and an 8-foot.
And I think I got the other one's a 7.5. So I go small. I like that because when I bring these bigger baits up, they come to surface a little bit quicker. I like to see the follow-ups. You know what? We've all talked about the figure 8 and stuff, but I like it. Seems like when I have the longer rods, when I'm bringing in my musky baits, now that I'm just thinking, it seems like I don't get to see it when I'm standing up. When I have a shorter rod, it almost like brings it. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but it seems like it brings it to surface maybe, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 feet from boat. And then all of a sudden I see the follow-up. And I like that. I'm visual like that, like you just said. So maybe that's what but mine are more of a stiffer rod, and I use the Ambassador C5s. I mean, I use the same reel. So
yeah, it's the same reels that I'm running.
So I like it, but you're right. I can't just sit, but I can throw a jig out there. I like when I'm smallie and we find a ledge, smallmouth fishing, I can take a jig and throw a leech on, probably a fathead. I'll just I can feel it bouncing off the rocks and stuff like that. And when that smallie hits it, smallmouth bass are very, very fun.
Oh, they're by far my favorite species to target. We've talked about that many times in the past. You mentioned follow-ups. I'm curious also, like kayak-wise, I think like you'd be smaller. You'd think fish, when they're falling up to the boat, they're going to see the boat more, bigger boat.
Right.
I had a pike, and it was, I'm gonna say it was 30 plus. It was a real big pike that came up, slow followed, and I was figure 8ing on it, and it was staring at me. And it's like on the second 8, it saw the boat, and you could tell because that was it. Like it just came out slow. It was slow behind the bait, and it was following, and then it stopped, and I kept moving, and I kept the figure, and it just stayed there and was looking. And then on the second one, it's like it almost looked up and just boom, turned around and took off like so fast. I'm like, did it see me? How did it, because I was standing up. Did I move too fast, whatever? But I was shocked that it stood there and just stared at me. I would have thought in a kayak that I'd be smaller. It wouldn't. I mean, I guess it was pretty close to me. It was probably me to you, or here. So what, 6 feet away in the water, sitting there. It was a cool experience to see it.
What's the bottom? Plastic.
Yeah.
Is it
rotomolded plastic?
Do you like hull? Do you like? Is there can you put black? Would it be advantageous to go black underneath it?
I don't know. My boat's blue. It's like a sky blue is the color of my boat.
So sky blue is a brighter blue. It's a bright blue. Maybe you get at the right angle. He comes up and he sees it through the sun. I don't know. Maybe a shadow goes. I don't know. But I've always seen. I haven't said always, but some boats I have seen they're painted black.
Painted black. Yeah, that would make sense.
I didn't know if that was. So guys do it on Winnebago. I know why we do it on Winnebago, because when you let your boat sit there, it's scummy. It's scummy. That way, if I got a black if I paint my boat black underneath, it doesn't look as scummy as it really is sitting in the water.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's still my goal. I'm still looking at that. I think this weekend here, I've got plans I might go out and do like a real early morning sit and see if I can catch something in the edge of a field. Because I finally got a good wind for the spot that I intend to hunt. I've got a perfect wind set up for me, so I think I may give that a stab. But otherwise, yeah, I'm back in the kayak, and I'm thinking next week I might take a stab at throwing some big baits around on one of these lakes. I'm going to do it during the middle of the week. I might take like a Wednesday or a Tuesday and go and try and throw some baits around, just see what I can conjure up and figure out. Now, when you say, talking to Joe Flater that he's saying later in the afternoon, it's like, dang, I would be looking to do a morning thing and hoping to find something in the morning. So we'll see what happens. Again, that's the thing about fishing. It's fishing and not catching. And the best part that I think is so attractive about musky fishing is it's okay to get skunked. You don't have to feel bad if you get skunked, because everybody gets skunked musky fishing.
Right.
Fish with 1,000 casts, right?
Right.
Unless you're one of those lucky people that like your 4th cast you land one, or.
Well, that's why I think river fishing is so much better than lake fishing. The 10,000 casts before, you don't do that, and I can't handle that. I couldn't.
Yeah, your shoulders and your arms, being a former major leaguer, you just don't have the ability anymore.
Hell, I couldn't throw a baseball 60 feet 6 inches. How the hell am I going to throw a lure that weighs 10 pounds? No, but I like that. It's neat, but you're right. It changes, and that's why I like going with people and learning from people. Like right now, the water level's low. The temperature, I don't know. We didn't get that from them, but all of a sudden that feeding window is 2 to 5. And I've seen him change where we have to be out by 9 to noon. So river fishing changes for everything. temperature. I think water level is very, very huge on the river. When they shut those dams down or they open those dams on, when there's a heavy rain, water level seems to really mess with the musky fishing on the river.
Is it water level or current? Because I might actually question current being bigger than even the water level, because the level can be determined on current too. The higher the water, the more current.
Yeah. He always refers to level of water. What happens underneath, like you said, current, maybe that is, but I've always learned just by level of water. Maybe, something all of a sudden, formation underneath, maybe they only want to be 6 to 8 inches below the water on the shore, but now all of a sudden that 6 to 8 inches is now 18 inches. So now they move to a different spot because he has a spot floating down those rivers so many times that it's almost like boom, 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 boom. This is where they always hang out. But heavy water or high water, different current, all of a sudden it switches locations. So, but yeah, again, something that once you think you have it figured out, it's almost like you're wrong.
I gotta do this musky float fishing thing. I gotta do this at some point in time. But what's in the plans for you? Anything in the next week or so that you're set up? Are you gonna finally get out in the woods at all, or are you kind of just waiting around?
I'm gonna try to get out there. I have check my cameras. I'm old school. I have to pull cards and look. But I'm gonna be like one of those people that you were just talking about last weekend. I think it's time to take my stuff in to get it winterized. So I'm gonna go up next week up to Oshkosh. Take my boat in, have them acid wash it, winterize it, and I got to put a new prop on there. And then Maria up there, she details it for me. But then I'm going to take the jet skis over to Fuel Motorsports here in West Bend, and I'm probably going to do that tomorrow. Yeah, I hate putting my summer toys away because that means it's fall. But the good thing I have is I can turn around and jump in a stand, and we can look for deer.
That's right. Deer and turkey. Fall turkeys are open as well. So whether you're looking to do that, I will have one of my turkey broadheads in quiver anytime I'm in the woods because, I got a tag. Why not?
Yes,
if it's one of those days
yes.
and a turkey comes, I'll fill some tags. So best of luck to you, whatever you got going on in and out of the woods. I hope you have a fantastic week. We're back again. Same time, same place next week on our affiliate here, 97 Through the Game. Will be 6 o'clock in the morning. Of course, the full long form of the show available on the iHeartRadio app. And pretty excited next week. The guys from Vortex Optics are going to join us. We're going to talk everything optics. If there's a question you've got about binoculars, rangefinder, anything, feel free to shoot us a message on our socials, or you can email me, ShaunRitter@iHeartMedia.com, and we'll try and get those answered for you. But we're going to cover a lot of stuff. Really looking forward to that because I think there's a lot of numbers and a lot of jargon in optics that it can seem overwhelming or scary.
Absolutely.
And we're going to let these guys break it down and make it as simple as possible for all of us. So don't miss next week with Vortex Optics right here on Tailgate Talk. Until then, we'll catch you next time.